Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I am Julie Roth Novak, CEO and co founder of PartySlate. I am so excited for this week's webinar because I know I sound like a geek. My life's passion is helping people with their websites. I know that sounds crazy, but I love doing it. And I've met two people through the industry that have an equal passion for helping to tell your brand story and using digital, online and offline, to build a stronger company. So Sam Jacobson, Ideation Consulting. I met you through Engage. How long ago? Many years ago.
8 years ago, maybe
Yeah,
seven
no, it
years
wasn't that
ago.
long because I started the
Okay,
company 5 years
7 years
ago.
ago. Don't
Now
worry, I
you're
won't
just
reveal
making that
how
up.
old you are, Julie. It's fine. Don't worry.
I am old, but 5 years ago, and saw you present on business strategy, your background with resorts and venues, and your amazing consulting business that you've built. Part marketing, part business, part digital. I am so glad to have you on our panel today to talk about websites. Specifically, we're going to talk about the homepage, the about section, and the contact page. And also, if you guys on the Zoom can give us a shout out where you're zooming in from. We love to see people from all over the country and all over the world kind of coming in. Change it to all panelists and attendees so we can see where you guys are coming from. And Alea, we met I think through Megan. I don't remember exactly how we got connected, but
That's about right.
yeah, I mean, like I think 10 people said we need to meet. So I love your background as well, coming in through the industry through hospitality and as a chef and working with celebrities. I always get impressed with that. I am excited to have the two of you guys on. So before we get started, and Pamela, our editor, there's amazing newsletters that you get, and articles are coming from Pamela and her team. So Pamela, thank you for being our question and answer moderator today. So before we get started with the presentation, the discussion, Sam, why don't you just tell us a little bit about how you got into the industry, what you do, and what you're excited to talk about today.
Yeah, sure. So for those of you who do not know me, I'm up in the San Juan Islands in Washington State. I've been up here for a lot of years, since 2001. I started working at a resort came over and said, "Hey, guess what? The event manager quit." And I said, "Oh, that's too bad." And he said, "That makes you the new event manager." So I had
Welcome to your new career. Yeah.
Totally. It was like, this is your summer job now.
Right.
I had no idea about weddings at all. I had attended two in my life, both my cousins, and I was mostly out back screwing around with the other kids. So I went and read about how to run a ceremony rehearsal, and I was off the races. And I did that for 8 years and absolutely loved it. I sold venues and catering at the resort, transformed that resort in large part through sales and marketing to the top rated destination property in the Northwest. In fact, last night there was the Seattle Bride Magazine Awards, and the property won for the 9th year in a row, the top destination.
It's amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I mean, it's a team effort, and I haven't been there for several years, but to get it off the ground, we were serving drinks in plastic cups when I first started. And we did great with sales work. We quadrupled sales in a 5-year period during the 08, 09, 010 or 2010 recession, and felt like I needed a bigger challenge. So I was picked up by Todd Events out of Texas. Todd had me come in and run operations for all of his companies. I did that for a couple of years and got a lot of experience in the luxury segment, big market segments.
And for those of you who don't know Todd Events, like Dallas, Houston, amazing, talented, and also a great speaker.
Yeah, he is incredibly charismatic, and he's got a once in a generation mind and creative spirit for design. And I learned a ton there, and I felt like I needed a bigger challenge. And Todd, frankly, was about as big as it gets. There's only a handful of companies that are really a lot bigger and more challenging than what he had. So I thought maybe I'll just juggle multiple bosses. And so I got into consulting work. I work exclusively in the event industry. I do mostly business leadership and sales consulting. But in the last year, we've added on copywriting as a big part of what we do for our clients. We've just gone further upstream now that more people are shopping online and starting the sales process earlier. We felt like this was a natural fit for us. So we apply the same science-backed research that we follow for sales into the copywriting world.
I love it. Amazing. So glad to have you. And Alea, I love your background as well. Give us a little overview of how you got in the industry.
So I started not in the industry at all and never thought that this is where I would end up. So I started in the fashion industry and the cosmetics industry. And then I was laid off and I couldn't get a job doing anything. Nothing. I don't even think people would have let me like shovel the sides of the sidewalks, like nothing. And one day my friend was over at my house and she said, well, she was eating my food, which she did like a lot. And she said, you should go to culinary school. And I said, not doing anything else. So I went to culinary school. I went to Le Cordon Bleu and I was there for 2 years. And while I was getting my culinary degree, I started my catering company and I got the best piece of advice that I've ever received. I had a very grumpy chef instructor say to me, well, you're not going to make really much of yourself unless you work for 10 years in a restaurant making $10 an hour. And I'm just like, that is not how I'm set up. How do we make this work? And I said, and I never really thought about career trajectory in the industry until then. But when I was there, I decided to prove that person wrong. I'm not normally motivated negatively like that, but that really helped me in that moment. And so I went out and I started a company and I had within 2 years, I had 20 recurring accounts as a catering company. And then I had a private chef part of that company where that became my main gig. And I was Stevie Wonder's private chef and Bruce Willis's private chef. And I flew all over the world and got to experience that type of life. And then I said, okay, this is really cool, but I also have a degree in business. So where are we going to go with this? So I applied to work and actually got the job. I know when you send a application over the internet, it's like kind of goes out into the ether and you don't think anybody ever reads it. Well, somebody read it and I got a job working with Google as a Google food partner. And I was helping to build their global internal Google food program. And then I rose up to become the head of marketing for North America with my parent company, which is a large corporate food service company. And then while I was there, I'm like, this is great. I'm doing it. I'm in food and I'm doing marketing and I'm loving this and the exposure. But then I was missing all of the fun. I was missing the people that got to celebrate the weddings and got to celebrate the events. And I didn't get any of that. So then I started Flourish Marketing, and being the type A person, I just did both. So I was the head of marketing and the head of Flourish at the same time. And then I decided to do this full time, and I've been loving it ever since. Flourish Marketing is a company that I currently own, and we do marketing for the wedding catering and events industry, everything from website design to social media content to we also do copywriting as well and strategy sessions. I'm a StoryBrand certified guide. And if you are not familiar with StoryBrand, it's a narrative-based approach to help you better convert people using the power of story. So all of our work uses that framework to help kind of clarify your message, as they say, and to really make sure that you understand what you're talking about first, and then you can convey that in a way that people feel compelled to work with you. So now I get to work with celebrants all day, and I love it.
I love it. Well, I'm so happy to have both of you on the call to talk about this important topic. When I started PartySlate 5 years ago, I realized quickly that this industry is always on the move. They're on to the next event. It's like a Broadway show every night of the week. And the time for digital marketing and kind of brand building, content creation is often on the back burner. And I think this rare silver lining of the pandemic is there's a time now to really look at your digital footprint, how you tell your story. And yes, your PartySlate profile and other profiles can be one piece of it. And we're going to talk about that later. But your website is really the hub of what I call kind of your digital footprint. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm excited to do just a quick intro. And Pamela, if we have any questions along the way, feel free to interrupt us. But I'm going to just do a quick context setting about your website, and then we're going to jump right into our kind of spotlight today, which is your home, about, and contact page. And then we'll end with a couple live website reviews. So when people ask me about your websites, I've been doing websites for 25 years with some of the biggest brands in the world. And when I used to run a digital agency called Razorfish, I always say you can't work on your website if you don't really understand or have documented your company strategy. You need to think about what your brand stands for, your target audience, what makes you unique. Really understand your elevator pitch. If you have 1 minute in an elevator to say who you are and what you do, what are you going to say? And really, what's your design aesthetic? What does your brand feel like? What's the tone of your brand? And so if you don't have this documented, I have a great template I can send over to you. It can be one page. It doesn't need to be, I like to joke, like a McKinsey 60-page document, but it needs to be documented. So when you start to work on what's missing on your website, you have kind of a Northern Star to go back to. So I'm going to do this in like 6 minutes, the 7 areas of your website, and then we're going to do a deeper dive on 3. Number 1, your homepage has to have a strong handshake. Who are you? What do you do? Again, talking about that, we'll talk more about the storytelling. Why should I want to learn more? What do I do next? Which is really important. I like to show Michelle Rago's site because there's some things I like, some things I don't like. But what I like about it is there's a very, very strong handshake. Your concierge to luxury. Michelle Rago Destinations is a full service boutique planning firm focused on catering amazing events and experiences around the world, and then a clear call to action. I love a lot of your homepages. They're beautiful in the images, but people don't know what you do. And you got to be really straightforward, still telling the story about what you do right on your homepage. Simple navigation. I always tell people, don't get creative here. Very, very important for search engine optimization that your navigation's easy to understand. I like to always say, think about, team, services, gallery, press, praise. It doesn't have to be just like that contact. It could be blog, but you don't want to get really creative on like, join our mission, or like you want this to be very, very, very straightforward. And do not use the mobile hamburger, it's called, menu item for your desktop. There's even some research recently that mobile hamburger, even on mobile, is not a best practice. People want to easily see your navigation and be able to click through really quickly. You also need to have an easy to read services section. And I'm going through this quickly because I want to spend the most time on our spotlight topics, but some people forget that people don't know what you do and how you can hire them. And whether it's talking about the type of events you do or the type of services you have, it's really, really important to do this. Photos and videos, that's what PartySlate's all about. We have done research. They have an insatiable appetite for understanding your work. And don't just put your photos, you have to have some copy so Google can actually see what it is, storytelling. I wouldn't just say, oh, I went to this amazing wedding and go like this. I would tell you a little bit about that amazing wedding. So it's really important to tell your story through your events. Introduce your team. Can't say how important this is. People buy from people. They want to see your faces. They want to be able to look in your eyes, so to speak, on digital. And then position yourself as an authority. It's so important, whether you're published in a local blog or the New York Times or PartySlate, to add, hey, I spoke at this event, or I'm leading this community. People want to know what you stand for. And then finally, clear calls to action. People want to be guided through the site. So don't just assume they know things are clickable. And you don't have to have huge, big buttons, but make sure people understand where you want them to go next. That was my quick soapbox. I'm very passionate about this, and I do give people tough love when I review their sites, only because I care and I want you to build your business faster. And so 3 of the most important pages of your site, of course, you need to show your work, and you're pretty good at showing your work. Of course, you have to share your services and your press and everything like that. But your homepage, your about page, and your contact pages is really a moment to make an impression. And sometimes you only have 30 seconds or a minute or less to make that impression. So to start with, Alea, let's talk homepage. And again, any questions, please pop it into the chat. But this is such an important page. And I sometimes see pages with a giant image, and it's a stunning image, but I don't even see the navigation, and I'm not sure where to go next. What do you advise people on the homepage, again, with that storytelling in mind, on how to really make an impression?
I don't mind a good image, but the
Yes.
image actually needs to relate to what you do. I
Yes.
was on someone's website, it was a wedding planner's website, and it was a video that was playing of like an eagle flying.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I get it. The sky's the limit. It took me a second to figure out. I was like, what are they talking about? If you're trying to be clever and cute, it's not going to work on your homepage.
Yes.
You need to be able to pass the grunt test. What do you do? Who do you do it for? What problem do you solve? How do you solve it? How do people buy from you?
Yeah.
They need to know that within the first 3 to 7 seconds. You really don't have that long to capture someone's attention.
Yes.
It's quick. Whereas you've put blood, sweat, tears, hours, your love, your heart into your website. There are millions of websites out there and thousands of wedding pro websites. So you don't want to give them any reason to navigate away from your site. And the biggest reason someone will navigate away from your homepage is that they're confused.
Mhm.
They don't understand what you do. If you're a wedding planner, it needs to say you're a wedding planner. And often it feels like, oh, well, that's just a little bit too blatant, too much. Like,
Correct. Yeah.
clearly I'm a wedding planner. It says Alea Harris Weddings in the title. No,
Yeah.
from the curse of knowledge.
Yeah.
You know exactly what you do.
Yeah.
When someone lands on your website the first time, they don't know you. And they don't want to care to know you until you give them a reason to care to know you. So that's the first way to make an impact. If you're going to use an image or that video, have it be of success, what success looks like for your ideal customer. Does it look like happy, smiling people at a wedding? Does it look like people getting down on the dance floor? Does it look like that aerial view of the perfect luxury experience? What does it look like for your ideal customer that clearly says what you do?
Absolutely. And I don't know, Sam, if you have any other thoughts on that, but I agree 100%. Like the more direct, it can still be beautiful language, but the more direct you are with that handshake, like let's say you have just 10 seconds to describe what you do, you got to do it right there. And if it's under the beautiful image or over the image, it can't be at the bottom of the page. It's got to be right after that beautiful, stunning image that you say.
Yeah.
And Sam, I don't know if you.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, Sam, did you have any other thoughts on the homepage?
I mean, at least as far as the things that's above the fold, like right when you pull up on your screen, I do like the idea of the image, and I agree 1,000% that that curse of knowledge. We think that everybody knows what we do and where we do it and who we work with, but you need to be able to translate that in like 5 microseconds.
Yes.
And that's going to be done with that image. And if you're off on that, then it's doesn't do you much of a service. So if you work in, like, say you work in Chicago and where PartySlate is located, then you would want to have an image that is iconic Chicago, that somebody knows like that. And you would want to have your ideal couple right there. And you would want to let them know what it is that you do as part of that, rather than just have the most beautiful image from your favorite wedding ever. It's gotta say literally in a handful of milliseconds everything that you need to, and then you want to confirm that right below, and then eventually you're going to start to elaborate on it. But you've got to get it right away. If you don't, you're going to miss, and they're going to just move on to the next one.
That's amazing. And that's why I showed Michelle Arago, I hope I'm saying it right, her website, because she's a destination planner and she's doing these high-end destination events. And that's what she says very, very clearly. And then she invites you to learn more. I go to websites a lot because people ask me to do these reviews and I like doing them. Sometimes I can't figure out where they live. And people do want to know, even if you do destination, they want to kind of picture like where you are, and like, are you in Hawaii? Are you in London? You really got to, I know it seems so obvious, but you really got to do that strong handshake on the homepage. Do you have anything else about the homepage, or I'm going to move to the about section and then we're going to do some fun website reviews?
I just have one other thing about exactly what you were saying. And it goes back to what you were saying earlier about how Google can't read pictures.
Yes.
When you need to say Chicago-based wedding planner so that Google actually can see that, because you can have that iconic image, but Google's not going to know that that's where you are, and make sure that that text, that string of words is tagged correctly.
Yes.
So I don't want to get too much into it, but there's different hierarchies of the way Google reads a website. So you have an H1 tag, your header tag, that's the big bold thing that Google's going to think that your page and your website is about. Make sure that the Chicago-based wedding planner should be something that you have tagged probably as like an H2 or 3 tag, so that Google understands where you are and you can show up in search results for people that are in Chicago typing in wedding planner.
Absolutely. We do a ton of talks on SEO. And so if anyone wants more information on that, well, we can send those follow-up links. But the SEO value of those keywords, in addition to your storytelling, is a win-win. At the end of the day, Google wants to get people to the right pages. So they're looking for what your copy says, but also like those keywords to indicate that this is something that's relevant to the person that's searching. So I think that's important. Pamela, are there any questions for you?
Yeah, I was just gonna break in. So while we're still talking about homepage, can we talk about like the pros and cons of having a video instead of a still image, or having like a carousel of multiple images that slide past? Can you guys talk about those things?
Sure, I'll give you my perspective, and I'd like to hear from the two panelists. I think video is great. It's engaging. I love it. I personally don't like when video takes over the entire page because it's hard to jump to the navigation. It's actually hard to read navigation over a video. So I personally love video. I like to draw people in, but I don't think it needs to be taking over the entire screen. I think it can be in the context of an image that's on your page. So, and I like carousel, not in a big bulky like user experience, but a very subtle experience, because I also think you have to be careful on what images you show. You want to show diversity, you want to show different types of people, you want to show different locations. And so I do like that feeling. It doesn't necessarily need to be sliding, but on your homepage, showing that diversity of the type of people you work with is very important. Anyone else want to jump in?
I think that there's only one note about carousel that I would add, is that you could rotate your images, but don't rotate your text. So rotate, if you're going to have text over your carousel, the images can change, but people aren't, make them kind of get like whiplash if they're trying to read words that keep going. So it's like, have your key messages, and oftentimes I see people, they're like, well, I don't know what my key message is, so I'm going to just put 3 and have them cycle through. And it's like, no. Pick your key message, have your images rotate, and then if you have other things that support that message, use those further down on your homepage, but pick your bold statement, and then yes, you can have your images move.
Agree 100%.
I have one more just kind of clarification. So we're talking about video. There's definitely like the kind of video that would maybe show a space if it's a venue, but what about a welcome video that gives that about us information on the homepage?
Yeah, I mean, I love having about us, video, a welcome video on the page, not necessarily top, but when you're introducing yourself and the team, or you can invite people to the about section where it lives there, which is kind of a nice transition to the about section. So Sam, why don't we talk a little bit about the section where I think it's a really underutilized section of the site. Sometimes I go there and it's just like a little paragraph and we are this, blah, blah, blah. There isn't any pictures and it's just a little paragraph. It's like, oh, I guess I have to have an about section. And I'm like, oh, what a missed opportunity. I want to learn who this person is. I want to know why did they get into the industry? So Sam, talk a little bit about what you think makes an about section great.
Yeah, well, Julie, I agree with you in many ways that what's out there for most people is not really making the mustard. It's a start, I think, that a lot of templates provide, whether you're using, a Show It template or a Squarespace template or a Flow Themes template or something else. I think that there's these little boxes that people see and then they go through and they fill them in. And that's great if you want a cookie cutter experience for the people who are on your site, because they're gonna go through, they're gonna see what's in that box, and oftentimes it's things like what kind of coffee you like, or where your fave travel destinations are, maybe a little bit of information about your hubs or your kiddos, pizza or tacos, Seinfeld or The Office, whatever it may be. And those things are kind of quirky, and I think that there's a spot for that on the about page, but it can't be just that, because your about page is where you introduce your why. It's why you're in business. It's why you're different than the others that they're considering, the other 15 tabs that are up in their browser. It's why any of this benefits the reader. And it's why people love working with you. Mm-hmm. And so the about section should be where they get to meet who you are, and they get to know not just what you do, but how it helps them. And if you can establish that credibility and that authority with them, that they're in the right spot, that you're the right person to help them, and that your values align, and that process is real clear to you, then you're going to have much more confidence in everybody who visits that section of your page.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And back to talking about the storytelling, people like to know your why, your founding story. And when people ask me all the time when I started PartySlate, what made you want to do that? They kind of lean in. They're listening. They're asking follow-up questions. And so I think this section could really differentiate you from a generic, about section. And maybe it piques their interest to learn more. Maybe you have something in common with that person when they hear something. So I really could not agree more that it's an important and overlooked section of the site. Alea, do you have any thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I would just say that I love to know your why, your philosophy, but I always encourage clients to tie the why back to the customer, because people are innately little self-centered
Yeah.
when they're coming to your website, right? They're trying to solve a problem, and they're trying to, like you were saying, Julie, have a philosophical and ideological match. Is this person the person to solve it for me? But at the same time, they want to know, yeah, do you like, ice cream or cake and all that stuff? That is great. But at the end of the day, wrap that in a bow and say, I started it because of this. This is my philosophy. And this is why my philosophy will help you more than everybody else.
Yeah.
Because they want to know more, but if you just talk about yourself and you're like, and now we're in business, and that's the end of the story, you're not giving them a compelling nudge again to want to work with you.
Yeah, I think
you haven't shown your value.
I think if you try to fit in, like you don't want to make it this direct, but if someone were to ask you why are 3 reasons I would want to work with you, or 3 things that are different, you want to fit that in and hope that some of those things are speaking to maybe something they didn't even know is important, but you educated them why it's important and why you approach things a certain way, or how your experience is relevant. That's going to really make their event amazing. So I think that is great. And then the last, and then we're going to go into the reviews, but the last section of the site, the contact section, this is amazing that maybe you have your Instagram, you have PartySlate, you have Pinterest, you have all these things driving people to your website. Then you have your about section and everything. And that last moment of truth, kind of the last mile, is that contact section. And sometimes I look at these contact sections and it's literally a blank page with a form. And I think it's such a missed opportunity, again, to be like, I always joke, like, if you're about to propose to someone, are you just going to be like, I joked before, like you throw the ring down, you're like, whatever, like, this is the moment of
Give
truth.
me such a guttural response, like, no, not the ring.
I don't need to be dramatic. These are websites, but these websites can drive business. And again, we think about that on PartySlate. I know we just added, I'll show you in a second, the team section, all these things that bring your business to life. And this is a second, you have before they contact you to give them that little extra reason why they should fill out that contact form. So Sam, I know you have a lot of thoughts on this, and we'll then open it up for questions on this, but what do you think should be on that page, and how should people feel on that page?
Yeah, the contact page is a really big deal. And if you don't believe me, go through and look at your Google Analytics or whatever analytics you use, and look at the number of unique visitors who visited your contact page last month in September. And then go through and take the number of people who actually inquired. The difference between the two of them are the number of people who thought that your contact page didn't do what it needed to do. Because the contact page has one goal, and that is to get the person to send in the contact form. Mm-hmm. This is the overall goal of your whole website, is to generate leads to your inbox. It's your storefront, and you want to get people to the checkout counter. And that's what happens when they complete the form. So everything you do should be geared towards making this happen. And a lot of folks are making it really hard for their website visitors to actually go through the form. Somewhere between 60 and 80% of forms are started but not filled out. And people don't fill them out for all sorts of reasons. But typically it's that they're too long, or they ask questions that they don't know the answers to, or questions that they don't want to reveal. And a lot of this happens when you go through and look at a form. So some ways that you can mess up forms: too many fields, asking for the budget, asking for a phone number. Who wants to give their phone number out to a perfect stranger? Asking for all of the people's information, whether it's the partner's first name and last name and phone number. Asking for a source of business. You don't need to know why somebody's inquiring at this point or how they found out about you. Asking where they're at in the decision-making process. There's no way that somebody who's never been on this journey and picking a vendor before has any clue how far along they are in actually making a final decision. So don't ask them. Don't ask too many personal questions. Don't ask how they want to be contacted. I see this a lot. Do you want us to reach out to you by phone or email or text? Everybody's going to say email. But the goal of the inquiry is to get on the phone with them next for the discovery call. So If you ask that question and they say, don't call me, now you have to figure out a way to work through that. So don't make it harder for yourself than you need to. And then in general, any question they don't know the answer to or feel like they want to answer themselves because it's maybe too personal, like, how did you guys meet? What's your favorite thing that you're looking forward to with your wedding? They may not know the answer or want to share it with you, so don't push them on it.
Yeah. What's the balance of getting qualified inquiries? So you ask enough that it's not just like a spam or whatever versus asking too much.
Sure. I'll do this. Put in the chat, if you're watching this, put in the chat, how many people, raise your hand in the chat, if you would like fewer inquiries right now. Who would like fewer inquiries?
Everyone wants more.
No, everybody wants more. So if it were me, if I were selling anything with wedding services right now, I would keep it very simple. Name, email, and then an open field box that said, what else would you like to share? Or something like that. Because I know that I have all the time in the world to be able to spend guiding people through these uncertain times that we're in.
Yeah.
And so I want to open up that valve. And by letting more people in, I'm going to have a better chance of booking them. Now, if I get busy, or if you all are busy right now, I know October is not a slow time for many people in the wedding industry. You may have to add some fields in to reduce the amount of unqualified leads that are coming through. But I do think that there's a lot more work that can be done once people hit your inbox, that you don't have to set up such a high fence for them to jump over to get in through the contact form.
I think it's a good idea. You could even change the form depending on how busy you are. So the trade-off is the more questions you ask, the less inquiries you'll get, but the more qualified. And so you have to make that business decision on, like, some people, like even on our form at PartySlate, we used to not ask number of people and other things. We added just, like high level optional fields to make them more qualified when they got to our members. And that has helped, but we aren't asking a lot of questions that are too many too early. I think that's
yeah. And I think, and I would put in there, just as far as, because I do hear that quite a bit, and I do agree for the most part with it. I think the most important thing to remember is that the people who are getting married, they have no clue what they want or what they need, especially when they first start out. And that's why they're actually reaching out to you. They just don't even know it. And if you want a really fun experiment, go through and put Hotjar or something like this that tracks behavior analytics on a website and watch people fill out your forms. You'll see that people have no clue how to answer some of these questions.
Yes.
And so anytime you ask a question of somebody that they may not know, they could be a very qualified client. They just don't know how to answer the question at the moment that they're filling out the field.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, Hotjar is a technology you can use with your website and actually watch how people interact with your site. We use Hotjar a lot, and I know it's a funny name of a product, but it actually helps you like see the heat maps on where people are going and where they're confused, and it's very interesting. It's like a science experiment. We do have a couple questions. I don't know, Pamela, if you want to go through those, and then we can jump into the reviews. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do have a few questions. So one, when you're talking about like the things that you want to find out, event date could save some time if they know the date and you're not available. What are your thoughts on?
So I agree with that. Normally I would recommend 5 fields: name, email, event date if known, venue if decided, and then what else would you like to share? But I think right now, I don't know anybody who's 100% certain on their event date being a reality unless they're getting married in 2022 or 2023. And so if you just get into the mind of the buyers, you're going through name, okay, email, okay, event date, I don't know. We're kind of thinking we want to get married in the spring, but we might have to push it to the fall. And it may be that we have to push to 2022. I don't know. And then all of a sudden their drive is up, or their friend comes back from the bathroom at the bar or the restaurant that they're at, and you just lost the inquiry. So right now specifically, I wouldn't ask for event date, but in the future, I think you would put it on there, but not as a required field, because a lot of people are just really excited. Let them be excited. Let them inquire before they know their event date. What do you care? What's the worst that could happen is you spend 30 seconds emailing with somebody and asking, and they tell you a date that you're already booked. I'd take that chance.
I think that's so what I'm hearing, and I like that. I had not thought of it as something that can be changed based on how busy you are, because we're different, and obviously people are contacting all the time through PartySlate, but less is more right now, less friction. So you will have less information, but spend the 10, 15 seconds back and forth. And again, if they won't get on a call with you, they are not qualified anyway. So, you know, anyone who actually wants to talk to you will after an email, agree to a phone call. So
I think that it's also important to keep in mind the rest of your website. If the rest of your website is doing a good enough job talking to your ideal customer, then those are the people who will be the ones that are contacting you more likely. So the issues come up a lot more frequently if you say, I do luxury planning, and your website doesn't look like you're a luxury planner, and you wonder why people are contacting you with budgets of $1,000. So if you're trying to whittle it down, the contact form is not even your first line of defense. It's your very, very last line of defense. You should be trying to attract and speak to your clients with the photos, the words, and the layouts way before they ever get to your contact page.
yeah, and I know a couple people, or someone asked in the chat about having the contact at the bottom of the page. And I have mixed feelings. I want them to be able to get to the contact any way they can on every page. It should be in your primary navigation, which is your navigation across the top. But I see some websites like homepage, contact us, you know, about, contact us. Like it's almost like they're pushing themselves. And I think that there's a better way to get them to know you and then drive them to contact. So I don't know, Sam, if you, or Alea, if you both could talk about what is your feeling on contact on every page.
So I think that you want to have a call to action, but I don't think people are ready to contact you on that handshake, right? Like if it was like, hi, nice to meet you, will you marry me?
Yes.
And that's a lot of progress to make in a very short period of time. So I think that we want to have it easy and visible. We like it up in the main navigation on the upper right. So it's the thing that you can see, right? The serial effect of home and contact are good. We also like it at the very bottom as they move through that visitor awareness journey, you know, that narrative that you're telling. So as they go through to the point where they know they're in the right spot, they know what you stand for, they agree with it or believe it, they connect with it, they know how they benefit, and then you can ask them for a contact. And so we like calls to action, but we like to move them through the journey until they finally have been through that narrative and can get to the point where they know enough to be qualified and interested when they do reach out.
Awesome. Well, why don't we jump to look at a few of these websites? So
can I ask one more quick question?
Yes.
One other question that came up in the chat was, as you're reducing the friction to getting consumers to contact you, that also opens the floodgates a little bit to vendors. So is there any language, is there anything that you recommend to minimize that if you just get too much of that?
For me, I'm like more the merrier. It doesn't, like, I'll take emails all day long. I don't really think of it as a burden. You know, I want to keep as much contact going as possible. All it takes is one person a year to get through that wouldn't have if I set up a higher barrier to entry that could make me $5,000 or $10,000 more. So I don't build my process around the exception. I incorporate the exception and I tolerate it. I build it in my mind as I'm okay with that if that happens. You know, I'd rather be wronged once, twice, 10,000 times, and still have that opportunity to be able to book that client that would have been prevented from inquiry in the first place. I don't know, Alea, how you feel about it?
I see where you're going with it. And I think that when people hear that, they're like, wait a minute, I don't have time to deal with all that email. But I like what you're saying about being open, but then that just means that you have to set up the back end processes to deal with that.
To qualify.
So whether it's, you know, automation, or you have templates, or you have an assistant, or you have a specific inbox that is managed by a VA, I agree. Let it open, especially now, because people have no idea what's happening sometimes in I totally get that. But so don't allow yourself to feel overwhelmed. If you are going to open the floodgates, just manage it like the planners that you are, right? Plan through the process.
Yeah, and put filters in place for the networking emails. I mean, you can't stop them from coming. They will find you through Instagram, LinkedIn, however, and, you know, filter, you know, based on your priorities. What industry professionals are you most trying to create relationships with? And maybe it's venues and event planners or photographers, whatever it is, put that filter on. And then, no offense to any type of, you know, rental company or tent company or anyone else that's trying to network with you, but you can't have a million networking Zooms a day. So you're going to have to prioritize which ones will help you grow your business the most. And then I like to call it the natural fizzle, which is more like, would love to connect in September, really slammed, take a look at our Instagram, or, just again, respond. You're not going to totally blow them off, but you can't get on the phone with every event professional. So you just have to prioritize like you do in the real world. So really quickly, we talked about the about page, the contact page. Our product team, tech team, I think they work even more efficiently from home. Like we're not bugging them every 2 minutes about doing stuff. And we have launched 5 or 6 of these new features on our PartySlate profiles. Many of them are for premium members who have, again, signed up to get additional exposure on PartySlate. But what we're trying to do is really tell that story. So on just Bliss Events Chicago, this is just one example. You can see how there's multiple cover photos. You can do indoor events, outdoor events, really get them engaged with the different type of work that you do. And then you can see all these new areas that we've added. We always had the gallery and video gallery. We've added team, we've added FAQs, and then also pro connections, people that you've worked with on a regular basis. Here's that video entry level, like, hey, here's who I am, learn about the company. People do love the motion graphics. And then what we found is having all these real events and the ability to jump into these real events and see all the event professionals that you've worked with really gives people a chance to get a feel for the type of work you do. And then the meet the team section, again, a little bit of personal information about the people that work at the company. And then frequently asked questions. This is a good opportunity to answer their questions even before they get on. These are all SEO optimized. I know, Alea, you and I are aligned how important that is. These are questions that people ask in Google, and now you can have the answer on your own page based on the type of work you do. We also added a really cool thing that you can add your connections. So here you see all the partners that you've already connected to, and then these are people that you have that don't yet have PartySlate profiles that you can invite to the platform and build your network, similar to kind of like what LinkedIn is doing. And then finally, we have the scrolling ahead, people that you've worked with. So we have found that if you've worked with a venue that they're selecting, you're more likely to get the business. I'm sure, Sam, you've seen this in your past. So, I'm getting married at the Botanic Garden. Rennie from Bliss Events has worked there. She's done, in fact, 3 events. That makes me feel more connected to her. And you can see all the different types of professionals she's worked with. So we want to provide a place that complements your Instagram, complements your website, but it's just super internet in a box for your business. So going back to the website reviews, here's the spotlight. We had 2 companies reach out to us and say, please review our websites. We are happy to have everyone see it. So we'll talk about the good and maybe some areas for improvement on these websites. And so I'm going to just start with the homepage for Bento on Hudson, which is a really, really cool venue that we've been working with. I like a lot about the site, but I do think there's some areas for improvement. So Leah, why don't we talk about the homepage first?
Yeah, so here is that video that we've already spoken about. I love that it takes us through the space. And I do like the headline where events become experiences. As you can see, when we're showing it through the Zoom, the video does lag. And the video sometimes does lag when it's loaded. So if you are going to use a large video like this, you want to make sure that it's an appropriate size so that the loads time and the load speed of your website doesn't suffer because of your video. When we get into this next section, I do like the way that it's basically on the left, like you can have all of these events here, and then it has a little bit of a blurb, but this is it. And I'm missing so much more information that I want to know. When people visit a website, they have no intention of being super active. You think that they want to click on everything and they're going to drill down and know everything about you by the time they're done. And that is just not the way that website visitors operate. They're going to scan and scroll. They're going to look for your headlines, see if something looks interesting. If they don't get their question answered immediately, they're out. And you need to have a little bit more information to make sure that you hit on some of their key pain points before you lose them to the next venue. And I think that that's one of the things that this website could benefit from is more information on the homepage and less expectation that the people will go and click through to different pages when they are just not there.
One thing I'll add is, although I like this graphic, it feels like navigation to me, and part of me wants to click
right.
dinner party and holiday party, and it's not clickable. So this, I know it is a cool image, but I actually don't like the design because it does feel a little bit like sub navigation, and then it missed my expectation. I do think, again, the design is very clean and modern. I like that. Sam, what are your thoughts on the about page?
You know, I got to be honest, when I first looked at this, I was genuinely confused. I thought I was reading about an architecture firm rather than a venue. And I had to go back to make sure that this was the right link that I was supposed to be on.
Yeah.
So,
well, look at the first sentence. Bento is a hospitality/design firm. Like,
yeah,
wait,
I just didn't know what it was about. So also I was kind of turned off by the photo. I felt like it was a little dark and dreary. And the barricades out in front. I don't know who their ideal buyer is, but for me, it didn't really connect. And then when it went through and with the headline of experience first, my own personal experience was that I didn't know what was going on. So I like the company history, which is great. I like getting to know who's a part of it. But like you said, Alea, in the earlier discussion about the about section, it's not about me. It's about how you and I are going to work together, and mostly about you and what your experience is like and about what it's like to be a client of ours. And so I'd like to see a little bit more about what kind of client needs are taken care of. I'd like to see some testimonials about past clients and what it's been like to work with them. I'd like to see a little bit more about the process. First do this, then this will happen, and finally you'll do this. And I'd like to see a little bit about the benefits and the unique selling position so that I know why this space is different than the others that I might be looking at.
Yeah, and if you look at the space section, this is a little bit like you really see the venue here. And I think this is really well done in this section. But it's confusing that the about this, you see the about the space here is not in the about section. So the about section is almost like history. And again, I agree that photo doesn't do them justice, but this section, the space, is actually a little bit richer. Again, I'd like to see more information, and people do want to see photos, not just videos. So I think that you see the dots here, and this is kind of a little bit more photos here. Again, these, unless I clicked on these little dots, wouldn't have known these are here. So I know this is a beautiful space. It's very popular. It's a great venue. I think the website is not doing it justice. People do want to click right on the photos too, and there isn't a photo section. Lastly,
can I do one more? Sorry, Julie, to interrupt. One more thing. It looks like in the photos, this is something that we see all the time, and I'm sure you see this too, Alea, is that it looks like a nuclear bomb went off. There's no people.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that there was not Armageddon or the apocalypse. We need to see humans in the space. We need to make sure that it shows that there's a celebration going on, especially if you're a venue, because like this is beautiful to look at this empty space, but people lack the imagination of how to go from A to Z and what it's going to be like to experience it when you do get to Z. So make sure you're not just doing a portfolio of architecture or design. You're filling it with warm human bodies, and you're showing what the space looks like when it's dressed up.
Bringing it to life. And I think I know some parties, there's privacy and things like that, but we found 95% of events, people are okay sharing their photos. They're all over social media, like those privacy days are gone. So I really think most clients are fine with you showing people photos. So obviously, you know your clients better, but it doesn't have to be all people photos. It's what we say is a mix of people photos and also what we call beauty shots or room shots that have decor and everything else. So again, it's a good site. It's got a good, simple structure, but there's a missed opportunity to tell your story, especially in the about section here. I think this is confusing. Are you a venue? Are you a hospitality firm? Are you a hospitality firm that owns a venue? It's got to be really clear. Let's spend one more minute on the contact, and then we have another website to look at. We have 10 more minutes. I know this is going so fast.
Sure. So real quickly on the contact, simple contact, but it requires a lot of effort for me to actually do something. I want to be prompted with a question. And when I'm prompted with a question, I'm likely to respond. That's why we have forms. So right now, the call to action is get in touch, which is right there. It's hard to see because it equals in font height the address and the phone number and other things that are on the page.
Yeah, and so This just
I'd like to see a form for sure.
a mail to form, you know, which I now I can't get out of it. Hold on, which I don't really like. I like better to have a form that's in the page.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, let's go because we have time for one more. Let's look at, okay, it's loading. I don't know how to pronounce this. Ripple.
Willie Ripple.
Yeah, it's kind of a mouthful. So let's start with you, Alea, and you've seen this website before, so you have some good thoughts on it.
I have, and I think Willie is amazing. She has such great energy. She's a great human being, and has been in the business for a long time. And we often see when people have been in the business for a long time, they start accumulating things the same way that you do in your home. And so you start accumulating stories and photos and testimonials, and you feel the need to put everything on your website all at once. And I think that's one of the things that Willie is suffering from on her site. She has a large navigation.
Yes.
There's a lot of things on there, and already I have decision fatigue. I don't know what I want. There's so many things. I'm out. Then she also has the scrolling images that scroll with the words on top of that. And it doesn't give me enough time to understand what exactly she does. And the images, like for example, this one, she might be a wedding planner. She also might be a social activist, because that's what that says, but she also might be a business strategist. None of these images talk about the success of planning a wedding with Willie Ripple. This one sort of does, but it's cut off, and then she's cut off again there as well. So I think that if you're going to have scrolling images, they need to talk about what you do. Yeah. I would also give it a little bit of a facelift, right? It's 2020. I would like to have it look fresher, more up to date. You always want to keep in mind, I know I've talked ad nauseum about your ideal customer, but the ideal customer that's getting married in 2020 is somewhere in between the ages of 25 and 35-ish, right? What do the things that they consume as part of their daily lives look like? This website looks like the demographic of people who are getting married a decade or two ago. And this isn't going to resonate with the people that are trying to get married today.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about it is that there's these three sections, you know, corporate, social, wedding, but the purple outlines and then the pattern background does feel dated. And so if you look at like Squarespace and you look at some other templates, those really modern, clean designs are really more compelling to this audience. But I do like that you have read more, you're driving people into those three sections, you have a video, you have some great content on here. And I think we talked before about like the consistent use of purple and calls to action, but I think the patterned background, which is it is dated, combined with kind of a serif font, which is a little harder to read on mobile, on digital, I think is dating the site. I think 6 navigation items are plenty. I wouldn't try to do more than 6, maybe 7. And again, one example we talked about earlier is Together We Give. I don't know what that means. And it might be about social giving. It might be about different things, but I think you have to really have a purpose for every section. And I would try to put these type of things under the about if that's important to you. But let's jump to the about section really quickly. Sam, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so one, before we even get there, the idea of having submenus within the main menu nested, I think is a real challenge. I'm already trying to figure out where I want to go with the 9 different menu items across, and then I'm asked to make another decision. And like you mentioned, Alea, it starts to create decision fatigue. I don't know where I want to be. I just want it to be easy. I want to click on something and have somebody narrate a story, and I'm just like eating popcorn while they're telling it to me. So
I like that.
So this is, I think this is great. I love the idea of having the photo. It's looking right at me, which I think is interesting. Either looking at me or looking at the text is what we want to do. There's a lot of information on here. It looks like a big wall of text, like a tsunami of words coming at me. Mm-hmm. And I am totally overwhelmed by it. I don't know where to begin. We know that about 80% of people are going to skim through on the first go at a website. And so that means that you've got to capture their attention with headlines and subheadlines. Yeah. And these crossheads are really important as we work down the page. We want to be able to skip very easily. And right now, I have to either read the whole thing or I end up reading nothing.
Yeah, and for
So
SEO, it's also important to have those H1s, H2s, and really like chunks of copy. I don't know, that's not a good word to use, but like you want snackable content, not a big paragraphs like this.
yeah, absolutely. I also think that as you go through and look at the actual content itself, it's really content that is kind of a split between services and an about page.
Yeah.
So the about page portion of it reads a little bit more like a CV or a resume. And it's more about what she's done in the past than about what you're going to do for me in the future. And that's really what we want the about page to be about, is a connection point early on that then transitions into, this is what it's like to work with me. Here are the things that you're going to get from it, and here's how you move to the next step. And it doesn't flow like that for me.
Yeah, and let's just, because we have a couple minutes left, let's look at the contact page. Sam.
This is the ring that's on the ground, right? That you hope that somebody catches.
Yeah.
And so we definitely want to introduce the contact page with a headline of, why you're here, and then also put some body copy in, like you mentioned earlier, to let them know what happens after they do this and what benefits they get from actually submitting the form. Why should they spend a little bit of time on it? And then also the form itself, feels a little bit clunky. I don't like the titles of it. Instead of having the word required, which requires me to read a lot, just make it the familiar asterisks. And then the kind of verify your code at the bottom is a real turnoff. It says to me that she's getting spammed a lot. And that tells me that there's a lack of privacy or of things that protect the security of me as a client. And I wonder if that's going to translate over to the type of work that we end up doing when I become a client of hers.
Yeah.
So that to me raises red flags, and I don't feel comfortable submitting the form to somebody who's getting that much spam.
Yeah. And I think, when we talk about a clean, design, I'm just going to really quickly just show Paramount Events is a premium member. We work with a big caterer and own a venue in Chicago. If you look at like the navigation, the clean logo, the sans serif, that means no curly cues on the font, that's really easy to read. And like really, this is the contact page, but on the homepage, just a really modern design. And you don't have to spend a lot of money on your website. There are beautiful, beautiful Squarespace and other WordPress, other templates that you can use that are already designed by a world-class designer. And so we've really tried on PartySlate and our suggestions on the website to really be careful of use of white space, really beautiful, simple design, and that storytelling that will really make the difference and calls to action. So again, I think when I look at a lot of the sites that we've looked at today, there are a lot of good elements and you can find your way around. There's no question, like you can find your way around. The question is when they look at 3 to 5 websites, let's say they got referrals, like check this out, these people are great. The difference could be that cleanness and that simpleness of your digital footprint that pushes them over the edge to contact you. So I think it's really, really important. Remember, referrals go hand in hand with digital. So Sam, if you give me three planners you love to work with in Seattle and planning an event, first thing I'm going to do is go Google those 3 planners and look at PartySlate and look at others to find out what I think of them and contact maybe 1 or 2 of them. And so referrals are connected so deeply with digital. And I want to make sure that people understand that referrals are never going away, but digital still has a big role. So we only have a couple minutes left. I don't know, Pamela, if we have any questions. I do think that, it could take 7 touch points before someone contacts you. So you got to think about your third-party profiles like PartySlate, like Instagram, like LinkedIn. Your website is like lower funnel. And then of course you got to do the rest once you get connected with them, hopefully in person or in a Zoom these days, to close the deal. Pamela.
Yeah, so we answered a lot of them as we went. So I have one final question for you that is more about the website as a whole.
Yeah.
Like, do you prefer information on a static page or a site that endlessly scrolls? And we've seen both that you've showed us. So if you guys could speak to that.
Yeah, I'll just say I like at least 6 or 7 pages. It's much better for Google. It's much better for your URLs, your clean URLs. You don't want to just put everything on a scrolling page. That says you can have longer pages now when people are on mobile. So you don't have to shy away from the homepage only has to be this is short. You can have information, but I believe for SEO reasons and for simplicity of user experience, that each of those sections should have a clean page and not jump up and down for everything on one page. That is the best practice. Anyone, Alea or Sam?
No, I
No, nothing to
100%
add.
agree.
Totally agree. Well, and I will say, just from, you know, kind of put my my sales coach hat on, you want to start building a path and a predictable behavior and an experience of making progress with a brand. And so if you can instill subtly, subconsciously in their behavior, scrolling down and then clicking an action and going deeper and then reading more and getting into the details and then having another click. And then eventually they're going to feel more comfortable when they're on the page filling out the contact form. And then eventually they're going to feel even more committed to working with you through the sales process. So you're priming them to that behavior of wanting more from you. There's that little mystery that's there of like, I wonder what's around the next corner with this brand here. And if you give it to them all at once, there's no foreplay.
And I also just think linking up and down, you get like almost dizzy when you're like, you're zipping all the way to the bottom and internal links. And so it's just not a best practice. So like think about each page having 3 or 4 sections on the page and then driving deeper engagement. You don't want to have the endless scroll page. We are out of time. Oh my God, I could talk to you guys for like 3 more hours about this because it's a passion that I have of helping people tell their story, which ties to building their brand. And many of them, you know, small business owners. Since the pandemic started, this was top priority to help people think about their digital footprint. And of course, we are happy to help you build a PartySlate profile or give you a review on your PartySlate profile. I love to do website reviews, as does Sam and Alea, because we're kind of a crazy group of people. We are going to send you the panel's contact information in addition to a recording of this webinar. I really encourage you, if you guys are looking for help, to work with these 2 experts. They're amazing. And on the PartySlate side, no, we don't design websites, but we will help you tell your story on PartySlate, whether it's a free profile or you're interested in full service. We can help you with that through our premium membership. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you guys are busy. Sam and Alea, such a pleasure working with you guys on this. So thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you.